Hey, look there. I'm a whole minute early. Can you believe it? Usually I'm like a minute late. Not to anything else, just to this. So, just wanted to say hello. My name is Laura Russell. I am a registered nurse. I've been a nurse for over 22 years. I started keto in 1991 and then transitioned to carnivore in 2019. Started doing lion about 2 years ago. Um, I think I'll be to 2.5 years lion coming up February, March, April, May. May. Yeah, because I started carnivore in June. So yeah. So that is a little bit of my backstory. Um, Feeling much better. Had the crud that was going around there at the end of 2024. Ended up with bacterial ear infection and sinus infection, and then viral pneumonia. They said in my right lung, which I don't know. I ran like 3 miles in the morning before, and I was like, "I don't think so," but that's okay. Um, and then offered to give me antibiotics for a viral. So I did my elderberry tincture, and then the other thing I did, which I've had this for a long time, was the Sovereign Silver, and so I had it forever and ever. And I was watching JP Reacts. He's a redheaded comedian and he's a conservative, just so you know. So if you're a conservative and you want to watch him, that's fine. If you're not, you probably don't want to watch him. Um, but anyway, he was talking about that sovereign silver, and I was like, oh yeah, I have that. And for viruses and stuff. So I did that, the elderberry, and then I also did my oregano oil, and I feel amazing. I went and saw all my patients today, and it was amazing. They're all like, "You're already better?" They're like, "My grandson's had this for 4 weeks." And I said, "Yeah, they told me it could take 4 weeks to get over it, um, just to even start to feel normal again, let alone be able to go back to work." And I was like, "No." So, nope, 1 week is long enough. Oh, good. So, hi, Karen. She's saying that she uses the nasal spray. So, I actually have those kind of containers, the nasal spray containers, to make product with. I was going to make a mixture up for like my grandkids, and it was going to be the Sovereign Silver, the methylene blue, which I also have that, oregano, and elderberry, and never made it, made everything else but that, never got that made, but I could use that exact same thing. So yeah. Yeah, I like JP too. He's funny, and it's really funny if you go back and look at him from like 5 years ago, completely different. He was the other direction, and so he's come a long way. I think when you have mouths to feed and some common sense, it's amazing. So, hi, Anne. And so I'm going to go ahead and start on tonight's message. It's carnivore for babies and infants. I've had people that I've worked with in the past. So if you want to look up somebody who is amazing, is you could look up carnivore family, and it's just amazing. Rebecca and her husband Louis Ruiz, they are a whole family of carnivores. They have now 9 children because she had her baby. And so he's a full blown carnivore baby the whole time she was pregnant. And since she's had him, the whole thing. But her other 8 children, they transitioned them to carnivore, and then her and her husband went carnivore overnight. But they transitioned the children a little bit slower, and she has wonderful videos on how to stair step the children into carnivore coming off of a standard American diet. So she is wonderful to watch. Um, Ken Berry's wife with their children, the two that he's had with her, carnivore. And I think with Bonnie Blue, I think she was keto-ish, ketovore, because I think she had a meat aversion, if I remember right, with the first pregnancy. I don't, and I still think she's kind of ketovore, which is fine. That's what works for her. Hashimoto's. So if you're keeping a disease of Hashimoto's suppressed, then I say keep doing whatever you're doing because it's working. Tara, I wish I had that. I have just been having to use my oregano and elderberry tincture. Yeah, and I mean, it'll work and it'll get there. The elderberry tincture, I don't know how often you're taking it during the day, but I mean, you can do it 5, 6 times if you need to. So I would do that and um hopefully you can avoid having to do antibiotics, but I mean, sometimes that's just what you got to do. I try to avoid them, but I'm never going to tell somebody to never ever take them. I mean, they are there for a reason, and sometimes you need them. But I really like to try to see if my immune system can do its job. So that sovereign silver, where you live, I would say you could probably find that at a health food store. I would be surprised if, and I don't know if you have like a Trader Joe's or I'm trying to think what the other one's called that's up by Iowa City. Something foods, Whole Foods, Whole Foods. I think they had it was smaller bottles. This bottle's huge. I'll show you. And it's been so long since I bought it, I have no idea. I mean, it's a monster. It's as big as my head. So, I mean, and it's clear. So, what I do is I take just see where it's up to. It's about half a teaspoon. You put it under your tongue if you're doing this version of it, under your tongue for about 30 seconds, and then most of it absorbs, but the rest you swallow. If you're doing the nasal spray, you can do that several times a day if you need to. And then I always do the neti pot too. So, the sinus flush. And I don't use the packets that come with it because it's the junky salt. I take the Redmond's or a good Himalayan salt and do that into the water. And I do filtered water. And that's what I use to do that. So, okay, back to what I was doing. Hello, squirrel, my ADD. Um, so when it comes to like, you're always worried about your children, like their proper growth and which I'll get into that, any nutrient deficiencies and their development. So, and this is just my opinion on what I believe and what I did with my kids. I had one child that was 8 pounds, 13 ounces, 21 and a half inches long at birth. She was half toddler. Then my last one was 7 pounds, 6 ounces, and 19 inches long. Mini child. He never even hit on that growth chart that they do in the office. And his first pediatrician that we had, a gentleman up in Burlington, Iowa, he was on me. He was like, "Oh, you're not feeding him. He needs more. You're going to have to add cereal." He was 2 weeks old. I'm like, "I'm not giving him cereal." I'm like, "He's not hungry." Like I do when they're hungry, I fed them. I didn't do, "Oh, it's only been an hour and five." No, I fed them. And he just kept on me. So I finally got sick of his stuff and changed to another pediatrician down in the town I lived in Iowa. And she was like, "Okay, that's okay. Like this is the norm. This is what we average out people." And I said, "So it's like a cookie cutter." And she says, "Yes." And I said, "Well, I don't believe in cookie cutters. I don't believe in that when it comes into the school system. I don't believe in that with our lab ranges, and I don't believe in that for our growth charts either." And, he was very thin. He wasn't very tall. Um, but, she was like, "He's fine. He'll eat when he's hungry." He never was vegetables ever, did not like vegetables. So we just didn't push that. And I can remember the first pediatrician, it was so funny. He says, "Oh, well, you don't have to worry about it because you can give him that cereal and it's enriched." And I'm like, "Enriched in what? I don't care. You calling it enriched and our government agencies telling me it's enriched doesn't mean anything to me. I don't trust them." And he was just like, "What?" Like he had never heard that before. And I was like, "I don't trust them. Anything they say, I purposely go the opposite direction as fast as I possibly can." Okay. Tara said, "Hi, Cal." Um, Tara says, "I've only been doing it 3 times." Yep. And you can always do more than that for sure. I would do 5. I would easily do 5. Oh yeah, you guys got that snow. We got 2 inches. I think Charlie said he's got like 10 inches where he lives. He's in Indiana. So yeah. Karen says the Sovereign Silver helped her get through constant sinus infections. Yep. Yeah. Hey Darth. Um, in 21, when we were wearing the mask like 16-hour shifts, I was constantly getting sinus infections and then strep because I'm a strep carrier, which I didn't get this time. I did not get strep. I haven't had it in several years now. Um, but I just kept getting that. And so one of the nurse practitioners I saw down at the hospital I worked at, the communist hospital I used to work at, she was like, just do the neti pot, do this, do that, do saltwater rinses. So that's another thing that's really good, Tara, is to do saltwater rinses, warm salt water, gargle with it and spit it out. That is something that really helped pull some of that out too. Let's see. Anne says, I just saw that exact brand on Amazon. Oh, is it? That's good. Yeah, I bought it through that company, and I'm sure there was an influencer. It might have been JP years ago had it, like his link to go right to that company. But yeah, I'm sure, you know, you can get it wherever. I would definitely have it on hand. I think it's a great thing to have on hand. Methylene blue, another thing that's really good for the immune system, and you can go out and kind of look that up. It's really good to have too. Karen says that's the size I have, but refill my sprayer. I like the Meal Med nasal rinse. Oh, I don't know if I've heard of that one. I'll have to look. Carnivore Santa says they got 4 inches in Virginia. That's more than enough. And was your snow wet snow, Kenneth, or was it the dry stuff? Ours was really super dry. Like as soon as a semi would go by, it was just like poof, white out for like 10 minutes. And you just had to hope you knew where the road was. So ours was definitely dry snow. Okay. So when it comes to babies and infants, I always tell people when it comes to doing carnivore, ketovore, I really, they are just smaller human beings. Like, think back to 500 years ago. The wives were not sitting there going, I can't get to the store to get my Gerber baby food. No, they ate what you ate. And when it was time, when they start developing teeth, that is a physiologic thing the body does when it needs more nutrients. That is something that you can tell. Like if you start seeing a baby that's like a month old and they're already breaking teeth through, they're not getting what they need. So they're requiring more. Um, but they're just small humans. They're just small humans. And if we weren't running around chasing broccoli, neither were they. And they sure the hell were not chasing around rice cereal or any of the other cereals. I am so glad I did not do that with my children. Um, a friend of mine had her daughter a week before I had mine. And then, let's see, I had my son a few months before she had her son. So they're very close in age. And she did WIC, which is, I mean, WIC's a great program out there, but she did that WIC and did a lot of those cereals. And both of those kids, nothing but allergies. I mean, allergic to the air, allergic to everything. And not every kid gets that. But I was like, no, we have enough allergies in my family. So one of the really good benefits of carnivore for children is it's so nutrient dense. They're rich in the essential nutrition of protein, iron, zinc, B12, big time for big 12, omega 3s, and all of those things are essential for cellular growth, brain growth, especially the fats. I mean, if you take breast milk and you see what the components are of it, the amount of fat, especially that first milk, of course, the colostrum, but it's such a high amount of high fat. And this is another interesting fact. I know you guys are like, I don't want to hear this, but if you have a sick child, as they're nursing, their saliva goes back in through the nipple, and the woman's body actually makes antibiotics basically for that child to match what it is they're having through the breast milk. 100%. You can go look it up. I know it's crazy, but it is true. Um, so that's pretty neat. And I'm not taking anything away from somebody who did not breastfeed. That's okay. Everybody has that choice. Um, when it comes to carnivore, it's an anti-inflammatory way of eating. Um, if you don't start them out on the processed foods and the sugars, and the dyes and all of those things, if that's something you can prevent from them ever starting with, so much easier than once they've gotten addicted to those things to get them off of it. But like I said, if you go look at carnivore family and just type in like transitioning children from standard American diet to carnivore, she's got, I think it was a series of 3 videos, it may have been more, where she went over how they transitioned them and everything, and it's wonderful. So that would be something you could look at. But you're preventing these children from getting introduced to these allergens early, which hopefully would then make them not have all these allergies, you would hope. It would stabilize their blood sugar because they're not going to have those spikes. If you look at most formula, and again, sometimes you have to do that, but if you look at most all of them, I mean, it is such trash that is in there. I mean, it was bad, 33 years ago, and it has not gotten better. I mean, it's high fructose corn syrup, it's I mean, it's just, you wouldn't feed it to your animal. You would not feed it to your animal, and yet it is sold to give to children. So another thing that having those lower carbohydrates is that their bodies will regulate the energy levels that they have and that they need through ketones, through burning the fat. So babies are born into ketosis. They're ketosis until we take them off of breast milk and put them onto food. Now, if you can take them and put them onto a cleaner version of this, then they would stay in ketosis, which, can you imagine how smart our children would be? I mean, it's crazy. So challenges to consider is you'll have to watch children. Each of them is going to be different as to what their caloric needs are, because and not every child's this way, but I never had that off switch. I never had that I'm full. So even though they're going to be eating better quality food, you still may have to kind of be the referee to say, nah, you gotta stop. Like, that's enough for now, and get them doing other things. But the time that these children will have, they will be able to go out in the yard and they will be able to do chores without complaining. Well, they might complain, but I doubt it, because they're going to have the energy. They're going to be like, yes, I want to go do this. It's just like if you start feeling much, much better after being on standard American diet and you go and you start eating ketovore and carnivore, you have all this energy. You're like, shit, what do I do now? Which is why so many people start working out that never had the idea of even wanting to ever work out, is because, or go for walks or any of that stuff. They didn't have that energy, and now they do. Let's see. Darth says, I've always wondered when and why baby foods became a food category of its own. I suspect probably similar to when and how pet food came out. So, yes. So if you really go back and do a deep dive, it kind of really kind of got big during World War II. Same as the rest of the processed food industry, where the men went away to war, the women left the home to go out and, make the bullets and the bombs and the things for the war. And so you had to have shelf stable, quick and easy, grab and go type foods. And that is kind of where a lot of that came up. Crazy thing is, I used to work at a food factory and we got a contract for beech nut baby food. And it was still in the glass jars at the time. And I was like, okay, we make human food here. So that would make sense. Well, then we had Purina dog food come through a few weeks later, and we did not meet their standards. Let that sink in for a minute. The number of contaminants was too high for the dog food, but we could make the baby food. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. Look that up. That's craziness, but it's true. It is true. So, carnivore, Santa said, not just how smart they'd be, strong and physically capable of doing, yes, far more than they do now. True. So variety, everybody's like, oh, I got to have variety. I am not one of those people. So it's hard for me to speak to that. They're saying that keeping variety for children, but if you're coming from standard American diet, I can see where that would make sense. But if you're starting them out this way, they're not going to know that. I mean, you don't see the hyena going, "Oh, we're having wildebeest again." Like they don't do that. Like their food is their fuel, and that's just how they look at it. So I think if we would just try to really use that, um, it says babies don't need fiber. Yeah, duh. Nobody needs fiber. Um, some parents do prefer a less restrictive approach for long-term sustainability. So when I looked at like the number of people that do that, most of the people that I went out and kind of looked at what they like how they did theirs, most all of them stayed ketovore. I didn't see any of them really going back to the old way of eating, like, standard American diet. Most of them did, some sweet potatoes, some um, vegetables that they grew themselves. That's the other thing. If you want to eat a vegetable. But you know what? When you're buying it at a grocery store, you have zero idea of what's been sprayed on it, who's touched it, how much bacteria is in there. I have never seen a recall on my beef. Maybe there's been a recall on it. I've never had that, but you sure see that a lot on lettuce. Another reason not to eat lettuce. Um, when it comes to growth and development, a lot of people will say, "What about the amount of calcium that a child needs to grow?" They'll be fine. They'll be fine. You look at some of these people like Kelly Hogan, her children were born, with her, some of the children. I'm not sure if it was all, but I know the last two, with her being carnivore. They're absolutely normal. You look at Maria Emmerich's boys that do, ketovore. Absolutely. I mean, they're thriving. They just look amazing. So I don't think you have to worry about a lack of calcium, a lack of vitamin C, or any of those things. Um, you got plenty of iron, you've got plenty of fat. And you can always slide in some bone broths that you make. And if they'll eat sardines. Now, as a kid, if you'd have tried to give me a sardine, I would have, no, I wouldn't have done it. I just wouldn't have done it. And I mean, once in a while I can eat them, but if I have the choice between half a pound hamburger or sardines, I'm eating the hamburger every single time. So age specific guidelines. So infants 0 to 12 months, breast milk, formula, if you're doing formula, should remain the primary source of nutrition. But as I said, once you start seeing teeth develop, especially if that happens really early compared to what your other children have done, that is telling you they need more than what they're getting from what they are getting. So you need to try to start adding in foods. I would never do cereals. I would only do meats. So you could puree meat, liver, you could make your bone broth. You could start doing that as early as 6 months easily. Um, a lot of people have their children, when they're teething, chew on like rib bones and stuff like that with a little bit of meat on it. What a perfect thing to do. Walk around, look like a little cave baby. Toddlers 1 to 3, animal foods such as eggs, liver, fish, ground beef would be easy ways of doing that, making sure that you're getting enough fat. You want to make sure that they have enough fat, and you'll know because they're either going to be good energy, clean energy kids, or they're going to be that kid that's having the crash and not having enough energy. Um, let's see, older children, 4 years and older. Um, you just have to make sure that you're letting them eat when they're hungry. But then again, you have to watch because some children, some of us do not have that switch that shuts off that allows us to stop eating when we're full. So that is something that you need to watch for. Oh, let's see. I was just checking to see if there was any questions yet. So, when it comes to nutrients monitoring, most children that I know, if they're in the regular school system, they're having physicals every year. I'm not a fan of going to the doctor other than when I absolutely have to. It's not something I do. It is not their job to take care of my daily health. It is their job to take care of me if there's something either emergent or that I cannot fix, then I go. And I did the same thing with my kids. It was if I had to. So, um, if for some reason, let's say they said, "Oh, your child's a little deficient in calcium," which I don't think would happen, but let's say it did. Bone broth is very high in calcium. Of course, you also have phosphorus. The other thing that I would do would be boron, capsules of boron. I would do that because that is so good for the bones. If that needed to be, you can actually take borax and put it in a glass of water and drink it. I know that sounds kooky. I'm not a medical doctor. Look it up. Vitamin D. So, for one, most of us are going to have our kids outside getting them in the sun and making sure they're getting their vitamin D. If you don't feel like their vitamin D is enough, K2D3, just it looks like a little teeny baby vitamin E capsule. You could do that once a day, and you just have to take it with a fat. So either a little slab of butter, a bite of egg, something that has some fat with it. You should not need any vitamin C if they're not taking in carbohydrates, because the carbohydrate, when that glucose breaks down, the receptor site is shaped almost exactly like vitamin C. So when it'll go in and take that spot, so vitamin C can't get in, which is why they need more vitamin C, because so much of it's being blocked and not getting in. So that is something that if they are having, carbohydrates, they may have to have some vitamin C. Um, but organ meats do have some. Otherwise, you could do that. Iodine, um, if your child likes seafood, you could always make sure they're doing that. And I don't know this, but this is how my brain works. I don't know if most children would even be iodine deficient if they never did that standard American diet and just did this. I don't think a lot of us would have even had that trouble had we not done that to begin with. So, um, it says here that they do recommend that you consult your pediatrician. Consult. That's up to you. Um, like all my doctors know how I eat, um, because I don't care if they like it or not. But some states have some funky laws when it comes to children and parents' rights. So you might want to be very careful, if you know what I mean. I won't get on that soapbox tonight, but one of these days we're going to go into some of the states and the laws and the things that they can do to your children, but not tonight. Um, if you're taking a child that has been on the standard American diet, I do recommend transitioning them slowly, getting them switched over. Otherwise, if you do it too fast and they have any ill effects, they're not going to want to do it. They're going to get tainted and not want to do it. So I would just, and if you're doing the same thing, it makes it a lot easier. Like if you're trying to eat standard American diet and make your kid eat that way, it's not going to happen. It's we do what we see, and that's the way it is. Um, it says that there are some children that occasionally do okay with incorporating fruit. I don't agree with that, but everybody has to do it their way, the way they want to. I don't believe that taking it, and I mean, if they mean berries, but when they just say fruits, that's watermelon, that's apples, that's oranges, that's bananas, which are fake. They're not even a banana compared to what they used to be. Um, they've all been genetically modified to be sweeter. So more fructose, more that goes right to the liver, which is why these children who have been drinking like juicy juice, the first 6 years of their life, they have fatty liver disease. And everybody's like, well, how did they get that? And I'm like, well, because we were giving them fructose and it was going right to the liver, just like alcohol. So what do you expect? You might as well gave them alcohol and at least got some sleep. But that's what happened. So I would be very cautious. And it personally, if it was me, I would be, for one, teaching the children, the plants that they can use outside for medicine, what each trees are, what they do, what are some properties that you can use those for, and things like that. And then it would only be berries for me and my children. It would be berries that are available in our area and only in season. I do freeze a few mulberries for my husband because they have a natural bacteria on them that's really good for your stomach if you're somebody that has like IBS. He hasn't had that for a long, long time, but several years back, he got into a pretty big issue with his gut. His biome was just off. And of course, the doctor's like, oh, let's put him on dicyclomine, which is bentyl, which slows down your gastric emptying. And what was the other? Oh, and omeprazole. I was like, no, no, you're not. So I went out and got berries. So I always kept some frozen in there that way in case he started to have something like that. We had something to go to. So, as I said again, if you want to look up how, a way of transitioning children over to carnivore, I would look up carnivore family and watch her stuff that she has. Let's see. Next week, we're going to go over uh, how to hit the 80% fat to the 20% protein ratio if you're doing that. Not everybody's doing that 80/20, but I do go over some things there. Let's see what else I have. Yep. And then the week after that is going to be going over fatty liver. So I think that is it for tonight. Does anybody have any questions? If you have any questions, ask them now or forever hold your peace. I've got to get some packages sent out tomorrow. I had some orders come in, so I'm going to get those sent out. Well, I'm going to get them ready, and then in the morning I'll take them out, is what I should say. Anyway, so I appreciate you guys for watching. And as always, if you have questions or comments, just leave them down in the comment section and I will answer them. And then if there's an idea of something that you want me to go over, you let me know. I do have several weeks where I've already got those. But if I need to put something in there, if there's something that comes up that you really, really want to know about, you let me know and I will absolutely do that. So I will get to my second job now, right? So thank you guys. And as I always say, meet, heat, eat, and repeat. You're welcome, guys.